As sad as it sounds, the primary function of cinema is to make money, and it's obviously in the interest of filmmakers and studios to make films that entertain and intrigue viewers above all else. However, this isn't always true, and there are rare cases where directors can't hide their utter disapproval of the people watching, even making this fact abundantly clear within the movie itself. But some movies nevertheless manage to veil their hatred just enough to get by, keeping audiences swept up in the spectacle while effectively mocking them in plain sight. So let's take a look at some, shall we? I'm Adam, this is Whatculture, and here are 10 movies that hated their own audience. Number 10. Jurassic World. Now, bear with me here. Jurassic World actually has a ton of snide remarks about fans of the franchise and Western society as a whole. Ahead of its release, Jurassic World proclaimed it would correct the course of the franchise, which has consistently failed to live up to the brilliance of Steven Spielberg's 1993 original. Several scenes during the film are devoted to explaining how humanity has become bored with genetically engineered dinosaurs. They've resorted to creating increasingly bigger, weirder, riskier, and supposedly better attractions. It's a thinly veiled attack on Hollywood blockbusters as a whole, and this isn't exactly an indie darling, what with its $150 million budget. However, it all made sense with co-writer and director Colin Trevorrow. He cut his teeth as an indie filmmaker. It's quite probable this was an attempt by him to retain a little of his lo-fi sensibilities amid the Hollywood tentpole machine. But with its weaponized raptors and invisible giant dinosaurs, Jurassic World went on to gross $1.672 billion worldwide, basically proving his point that people just wanted to see bigger and better things. Number 9. The Cabin in the Woods. The Cabin in the Woods is one of the most memorable and inventive horror films of the last decade, albeit one that was marketed to appeal to precisely the sort of audience that it was actually criticizing. Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard's horror comedy is a not-so-subtle satire of the horror genre, taking a traditional attractive teens in a remote cabin scenario and infusing it with a sci-fi twist. It doesn't take much thinking to figure out that we, the audience, are filling in the role of the Ancient Ones, craving generic blood and guts entertainment. And the delicious irony is twofold. Firstly, the film's marketing drew upon familiar genre elements in order to lure in the casual horror crowd. And secondly, it managed to hold audiences to account while actually delivering a creative genre film in the process. Number 8. The Devil Inside. The Devil Inside looked like every other found footage horror flick you've ever seen, but it decided to somehow be even more cynical and patronizing by not even bothering to give audiences a proper ending. The film infamously concludes with the remaining characters being involved in a car accident, after which we cut to a title card explaining that the antagonist is still on the loose, and that audiences should go to a website for more information. Critics consequently panned the film, and audiences give it a rare F cinema score, outraged that a film thought so little of them it didn't even deliver anything close to a conclusion. And if that's not bad enough, the bloody website doesn't even exist anymore. Number 7. Pacific Rim Uprising. Where to begin? This stunningly naff follow-up makes no mention of Hunnam's Raleigh Beckett, and even the characters who do return are mostly given the shaft. Case in point, fan favourite Mako Mori gets nothing to do before being pointlessly killed off in a helicopter accident, and comic relief character Newt is bafflingly transformed into a surprise villain. Oh, and he has drift sex with a kaiju because reasons. That's not to forget the jokes about dead memes, horrendously stereotyped characters, and dialogue so wooden you can almost believe it was on purpose. Del Toro's original film was no classic, but it did manage to provide blockbuster spectacle that was relatively grounded. Uprising, however, is a soulless, gutted husk, vaguely trying to imitate what worked the first time around. Except, no one seems like they're having any fun making it, and the filmmakers seemed content to annoy everyone. Number 6. Funny Games. This 1997 psychological thriller and its 2007 shot-for-shot Hollywood remake both set out to achieve the same goal: depict the horrible brutalization of a family unit, and make the audience feel like crap for watching it. Both movies revolve around two young men who invade the home of a well-to-do family and painstakingly torture them. For starters, both films are bookended with a grindcore track that defies the formal expectations audiences have of glossy genre thrillers. And midway through the film, one of the attackers grabs a remote control and literally rewinds the movie, allowing him a do-over in what we thought would be a grounded movie. And then there's the ending where the killers get away scot-free, and in the chilling final shot, the attackers stare directly into the camera lens as if to say, What, you thought the good guys were gonna win? It's easy to see why the films were widely hated by more casual audiences while proving divisive with critics. Number 5. Ghost in the Shell. Looking back on 2017's big-budget Ghost in the Shell adaptation, you really have to wonder what the hell Hollywood was thinking. On a superficial level, it's an entertaining enough movie with some truly gorgeous visuals, but you also have to consider who it was really made for. Given the clear lack of respect the film shows for so many of its potential demographics, it seems even the filmmakers weren't sure themselves. For starters, the film veers away far enough from the manga to upset the purists, especially with the portrayal of the Major. Progressive audiences meanwhile took umbrage with the film's whitewashing of a hero who was Japanese in the source material. And the film did itself no favours by rolling this criticism into its plot, eventually revealing in the third act that Johansson's character is actually Japanese on the inside. It was a bold attempt to deflect criticism and incorporate it into the narrative, but it came across as smug, tone-deaf, and disrespectful to, well, a large portion of the people who were initially interested in the film. With the backlash turning off fans of the source material, it's little surprise that Ghost in the Shell was a catastrophic bomb, and a mere 2 years after its release, it's largely been forgotten. Number 4. Natural Born Killers. Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers is one of the most controversial and divisive films of the 1990s, depicting the brutal killing spree of 2 serial murderers and their glorification by the mass media. Like almost every single Oliver Stone movie, Natural Born Killers is loaded with pointed socio-political commentary, yet it was largely sold to audiences on the appeal of its brutal violence and general controversy. Except this is precisely what Stone's film is rallying against, taking a typical Bonnie and Clyde scenario and filtering it through a thoroughly surreal lens. The violence is cartoonishly exaggerated, and a subplot literally deals with an entertainment journalist milking the duo's crimes for every drop it's worth. And while you can argue that some audiences will simply embrace the brutality at face value and ignore the social commentary, Stone shoots and edits the film to be as sensorily off-putting as possible, employing jarring jump cuts and bizarre colour filters that constantly keep the viewer at unease and ensuring the film remains extremely polarising years later. Number 3. Spring Breakers. Harmony Korine's 2012 cult film is another example of a movie conceived and marketed to basically look down upon a good number of people who would actually want to see it. The film stars Vanessa Hudgens, Selena Gomez, Ashley Benson, and Rachel Corrine as 4 young women who descend into a world of drugs and violence after meeting a local drug dealer. On one hand, it seems to be a rather shallow, glossy gangster flick, and that's precisely the movie that was marketed to young millennials drawn in by the presence of, say, Hudgens and Gomez. But on the other, Korine's film is a dark, artful coming-of-age thriller which features surely the most inventive and unexpectedly poignant use of a Britney Spears song in cinema history. It's Every Time, by the way. By drawing audiences in with its movie stars, Korine captures an audience and delivers the movie's message: don't be so easily led. Number 2. The House That Jack Built. Lars von Trier's The House That Jack Built is without question a controversial movie, being about a serial killer as he ventures out on a number of his murderous excursions. Wildly divisive among critics and audiences, many likened the film to an act of torture for numerous reasons. First and foremost, it's graphically violent, showing numerous murders of women and children in ways that basically feel tailor-made to shock, at a very long running time at 155 minutes. And even if you can somehow stomach all of this, Von Trier layers the entire stew with an extremely off-putting air of black comedy, in which you'll often feel unsure of what to actually feel. It's a brilliant experiment, albeit one that's certainly not for everyone, and that's precisely the point. It feels like an attempt by Von Trier to further engage his critics, while giving audiences enough shock tactics to keep cheering his name. Number 1. The 120 Days of Sodom. Pier Paolo Pasolini's 1975 horror art film is one of the most controversial films ever made, showing a group of corrupt Italian libertines kidnap 18 teenagers, who are then subjected to months of sexual abuse, torture, and murder. Pasolini's film refuses to shy away from the depravity that ensues, particularly prolonged rape and a nauseating sequence where the teenagers are forced to eat a meal of feces. It's effective in depicting the relationship between politics, power, sex, and violence. It's also a film many will understandably deem unfit for human consumption. For most, watching it once will be enough, if at all. And there we have it, folks, our list of 10 movies that hated their own audience. But if you ever watched a movie and thought, wow, the filmmakers really feel like they're hating on me, please do let us know in the comments down below, and while you're there, make sure you give us a like and a subscribe. If you want to follow me on socials, I am @Strawn87 across all social media. Come and say hello to me on there. Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and until next time, take care.